everyone, and welcome to a video tutorial for this poppy collar that you can see Melba wearing here. So I hope you enjoy it. Please like, share and subscribe, and we hope to see you soon. Thanks. Bye. Okay, so to make this poppy collar, you'll need yarn. Now this is a perfect scrap yarn project. If you're making a poppy like me, you'll probably want black and red. I've got this black here, which is a wool acrylic, about a 3 weight, and I've got this left over from some Christmas projects that is perfect. It's about a 4 weight, a metallic wool blend, and it works perfectly for the petals of the poppy. You'll need a colour for your leaf, and I've got this sort of minty green here, and that is also wool acrylic, and it's about a 2 to 3 weight. This one, it's slightly finer than the black, but you know, it doesn't matter if use your scrap yarns for this project. It's a really great scrap yarn project, and I'm demonstrating this as a poppy, but it could be any flower really. You don't have to make it as a poppy. I'm going to use a 2.5mm crochet hook. Now that's quite small because this one here is as I said, it's a 4 to 5 weight, so it's a bit small and I'm going to double strand these two. So I'm on the smaller end, but that's how I want it. You can just use whatever hook suits your yarn, and you could use different size hooks if you need to. You'll need some scissors. You'll need a darning needle to weave in your ends. If you're a beginner, a stitch marker might be useful for when we're working in the rounds. And a tape measure, which is just optional to take a measurement of your cat's neck circumference. For this project, I'm going to demonstrate it as a slip-on, so it'll slip over your cat's head. If you want to make it as either a button-up or a tie-up, I'll talk about that at the end. I'm not going to demonstrate that, but I'll talk about how you can convert it if you want to. Otherwise, this is a slipper over the head. So it's a good idea to have a measurement of your cat's neck circumference and an idea of your cat's proportions in relation to their neck. So if they've got a really wide head in relation to their neck, then you'll need to make an allowance for that. If they've got a really narrow head in proportion to their neck, then you'll also need to make allowances for that. Okay, so you need to slip it over your cat's head. So like I said, I'll give you options if your cat really hates things being slipped over their head, or your cat's proportions make that getting that right a little bit difficult. So I'll talk about that at the end, but let's move on to the techniques that you'll need. Okay, so here's the one I've made previously, and we'll be making it in 3 parts. So we've got the poppy, we've got the leaf, and we've got the collar. Okay, so to make the poppy, you'll need to know how to make a magic ring, how to single crochet. We'll work single crochet in the rounds here. We'll be changing colour, and then we'll make these petals. The petals are a chain stitch, a double crochet and a triple crochet, and then a slip stitch. Okay, so those, all pretty basic techniques, and we'll make the flower. And then we'll move on to making the leaf. And you can make 1, you could make 2, it's up to you. To make the leaf, you'll need to know how to slip knot onto your hook, how to create the chain, and you'll be working single crochet, half double crochet and double crochet down both sides of the chain. And then we'll just be weaving in our ends and sewing the leaf to the flower and eventually to the collar. Now the collar, which is this lovely zigzag effect, which I really, really love, it's really simple, and you'll just be using a single crochet stitch to make that after, of course, you've made a slip knot on your hook and you've created a small chain. And then we'll just make this zigzag, which is super cute. So yeah, that's all of the techniques. I think this is certainly approachable if you're a beginner, and a reminder that I use US terminology, and if you need to brush up on any of these techniques before you get started, then please do. Okay, so we're getting started with the center area here, and then we'll work out to the petals. So take your yarn, and just a reminder, I'm double stranding. And you're going to make a magic ring. So you do it your way. This is how I do mine. And then you're going to place 6 single crochets into your magic ring. So that's 1, So 1 and 2. Oh, just take me a moment to get this double stranding right. 1 and 2, and I'm using a bit of a smaller hook too. That's 3 and 4, 5 and 6. Okay, so then you can pull on your tail to close your ring. And then, now I apologise that I'm filming in black just for this first 2 rounds. So hopefully you can follow along, or hopefully you're familiar with this basic increase in the round. And yeah, I'm sorry that you can't see my stitches super clearly. But what you want to do now is, you know, if you need to, count your stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, and you'll slip stitch across to that first stitch. Actually, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Yep, that's it. So you'll slip stitch across to your first stitch. Okay, and it's usually easier to count backwards to find that first stitch. And then if you need to pull on those tail ends just to close that ring up a little bit more, then you can. So we've got 1 more round in black. So you're going to chain 1 here, and then you'll work your first stitch back into that same space you slip stitched into. Okay, so we're going to place 2 single crochets in each stitch. So you won't count your chain. Place your first 2 stitches in that first stitch, and then 2 in each of your next 5 stitches. So we're going to have a total of 12 stitches at the end of that. So that's 4, 5 and 6. And actually I should have mentioned, this is where you could use your stitch marker if you wanted to, marking that last stitch, and you'll just work around to the last stitch. But since we're only working with a small number of stitches, then hopefully it'll be okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, I'm not using mine anyway. 7, 8. It's quite easy to keep track of. Here, 8, 9, 10. And then in your last stitch, 11 and 12. Now we're going to change colour here with our slip stitch, so locate that first stitch again. So if you need to count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12, and it's a good idea just to do that to check your stitch number as well. So now just insert your hook into that first stitch, and we're going to finish. Oh, there's some of Melba's hair on there. We're going to finish our slip stitch using our new colour. Okay, so just place your yarn over top of your hook with the tail end at the back, and then you're just going to finish your slip stitch using that colour. Just pull up a loop. Okay, and then you'll have the new colour on your hook. So just pull those tail ends a little bit tighter, and you can snip off your center yarn now. For me it's black, it might be different for you. Oops. It might be different for you. But you'll snip off your center color now, and then we're going to move on to 1 more round using our new color. Okay, so once again, just tighten any of those tails if you need to. And here you're going to chain 2. And this time this will count as one of your double crochets in this first stitch. So in that same stitch you stitched into, you're going to place 2 more double crochets. So that's on top of your chain. So 2 more double crochets in that first stitch. 1 and 2. In the next stitch we're going to place 3 triple crochets. So yarn over twice, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through, 2. Okay, and then 2 more triple crochets in that same stitch. So it's going to get a little bit snug in each of these stitches, but that's what we want to get the shape of the flower. And then 1 more in that same stitch. And that's our 3rd triple crochet. Now in this next stitch we've got 2 double crochets. Well, actually it'll be 3 total, but 2 double crochets, and then we're going to chain 2. So we're just mirroring what we did at the beginning here, and then we're going to slip stitch into that same stitch to give you the edge of your petal. And then we're going to move to the next stitch, and you might need to move your stitches out of the way a little bit, and we're going to slip stitch into that next stitch. Okay, so just pull those slip stitches nice and tight, and so you can see there that we've made our first petal. So we're going to repeat that exact same thing 3 more times. Okay, so you'll chain your 2, and you'll place 2 double crochets in that same stitch in addition to your chain and your slip stitch in this case. And then moving on to the next stitch, you'll place your 3 triple crochets. One and 2. Just finishing off the second one, and it's a bit tight in there because my yarn is a bit big for my hook, but that's I've done that on purpose because I want this quite tight look to my flower, so it kind of you know, creates a shape that's a little bit, you can see it sort of bunches up a little bit. So I've done that on purpose. It's just a little bit more tricky to work with. So I've got 2 triple crochets in there, 1 more. And then in the next stitch, to finish off this second petal, we've got, so move your stitches out the way, make sure you don't miss one. And we've got 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, and then chain 2, and then slip stitch, and pull that nice and tight. Oh, sorry if I was working off camera there for a moment. And then slip stitch into your next stitch. Okay, so you've got 2 petals there. So you're going to repeat and do 2 more petals, and I'll meet you over here and we'll finish off this 3rd and final round of your flower together. Okay, so I'm just working in my last double crochet there, in my last petal, chain 2, slip stitch into that same stitch to finish off that petal, pull nice and tight, and then you're going to slip stitch back into that first stitch to finish off. And once again, pull nice and tight, and then you can yarn over and pull through and snip off your red, or you know, whatever color you're using, and you can just tighten that again. And what I do here is, because our tails are nice and close together, and just to secure them a little bit more, I just tie a simple double knot in the tails, and I'll do the same with the black as well, and that will help secure my magic ring. We won't weave in the black for now, but you can go ahead and you can weave in the red. I'm going to do that off camera. I'm assuming that you know how to weave in your ends. You'll just weave the thread with your darning needle and weave your yarn tails into the back of your flower. So I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera, and I'll see you soon. Okay, so I'm just finishing off weaving in that second tail. So I'm just working into the back of the stitches there, and I change directions just once. You can change directions once or twice, and then I'll just snip off the excess. And that's your poppy flower done. So you can, you can shape it around, and you want the petals to kind of overlap a little bit. So that's your poppy done. Okay, so there is my poppy flower done, and we'll just put that aside for now. And we'll move on to making the leaf. So you can make one, you can make two, but let's do one together, and then you can decide what you want to do with your leaf or leaves. So make a slip knot onto your hook, and we're going to chain 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, so starting from the second chain from the hook, we're going to place a single crochet. Now we're going to be working down one side of the chain and then up the other side of the chain. So you want to work into this top part of the V here. Okay, so in that second chain, make a single crochet. In the next two chains, make a half double crochet. So yarn over. In the next chain, a half double crochet, pull through all 3 loops, and once again a half double crochet in the next. In the next 3 chains we're going to do a double crochet, so yarning over, pull up a loop, pull through 2, and pull through 2, and 2 more, one in the next 2 chains, 1 and 2, and 1 in the next chain. In the next chain, half double crochet, and again in the next chain, so half double crochet in the second to last chain, and then in the last chain a single crochet. Okay, so there you've got your one side of your leaf. Now we're going to work along the second side, working into the other part of the V. So in that first, so just move your tail out the way, and in that first chain, which can sometimes be a little bit hidden, make sure you don't miss it. See this, it's that same chain that you've just worked into. So you're going to place another single crochet in that last chain. In the next, so we're just mirroring what we've just done, a half double crochet, and then again a half double crochet, 3 double crochets, one in the next 3 chains, 1, and because I'm using double strands it can get a little bit, in a smaller hook it can get a little bit splitty. That's 1 and 2 and 3, and then in the next 2 you'll remember half double crochet, so just mirroring from side to side. So half, oops, did I do a double crochet in there? That should be a half double crochet. Half double crochet. Just exactly mirroring what we did on the other side. And then another half double crochet. And then a single crochet in that last chain. Okay, so I'm just going to give you an option here. So if you want to, you can just slip stitch straight across to your first stitch if you don't want a kind of a little peak on your leaf. Otherwise, if you want to just create a little bit more leaf shape like I did on this one, you can just see I've just elongated the leaf point just slightly. You can chain 2 and then slip stitch into that first stitch. Okay, so that's up to you. Like so. Now I'm also here going to give you an alternative to this finish. Okay, so you can just simply slip stitch. If you want to make that end just a little bit neater, I'm going to show you how to make an invisible stitch. So just undo your slip stitch if you want to come with me and do this invisible join here, so it can't be seen at the where you've joined your your first and last stitches. So you can see there, you can't really see where I've joined them. So if you want to do this technique, and if you've never done it and you want to try it, just pull out, so you've undone your slip stitch, which is your other option to finish off here. You'll just pull out a length of yarn and snip off. And then you'll take your darning needle and you're essentially going to sew a stitch between your, in this case it's going to be your chain, your last chain, and your first stitch. It's a really great technique to know if you don't know this one. It's a really great technique to have just to finish off your projects really, really neatly. So what we're going to do is we're going to insert our needle underneath the two loops of that last stitch there, or the first stitch I should say. It's the first stitch where we started. You're going to insert your needle and pull up underneath there, and that's going to be one side of our sew-in stitch. And then in that last chain you're going to go down into the center of that chain, okay, and come out, bring your yarn down to the back because that's where we're going to weave it in. And you're just going to shape a stitch so it looks like a stitch there. See how that looks much neater than just slip stitching. And then you're going to just immediately weave in that end. So that's just an option, you know. If you just want to slip stitch, just slip stitch, you know, it's no big deal. Just slip stitch and then weave in your end, or in my case ends. So I'm going to finish off weaving in my ends off camera. I'm actually going to just, with my ends, I like to just tidy up my work if I need to. See how I've got just a little hole there, which is actually going to be hidden underneath my flower anyway, so maybe I don't need to bother. But what I just tend to do is I just bring, if there's any little gaps, I use my tail ends just to tidy those up. But that's just me, you know, maybe I'm just a little bit fussy like that. But you know, when you're weaving in your tail ends, it's not just weaving in your tail ends. You can also just neaten up your work a little bit if you want to. So I'm going to finish that off camera, and I will be back and we'll make the collar together. Okay, so I've just tidied up a couple of holes in there, little gaps with my tail end, and I'll just snip off that excess. Now leave your other two, or your other tail end. In my case it's two, but leave your other tail end for a little bit of sewing at the end. So you've got now your poppy and one leaf. Now if you want to make another leaf, go ahead and make another leaf. Otherwise we'll move on together to make the collar. So I'm only going to single strand the collar. So I'm using my green just to make it easier. I used black last time, and I think the black looks better, but it's not fair to you if I film in black just because it's so hard to see the stitches. So let's make our second collar, my second collar in this green. So you're going to make a slip knot onto your hook. Now this little zigzag effect is lovely, surprisingly pretty, and surprisingly simple. So you'll chain 3, 1, 2 and 3, and working in that second chain once again you'll place a single crochet, and then in the last chain you'll place 3 single crochets. So 1, 2 and 3. Chain 1 and turn your work. In that first stitch you'll place a single crochet, and then in the next stitch you'll place 3 single crochets. 1, 2 and 3. Chain 1, so you'll leave the last 2 stitches in this row unworked. You'll chain 1 and you'll turn and repeat. In that first stitch, 1 single crochet. In the next stitch, the second stitch, 3 single crochets, 2 and 3, and then chain 1, turn and repeat. 1 single crochet in that first stitch, 3 single crochets in the second stitch, 1, 2 and 3, chain 1 and repeat. So you get this lovely zigzag effect, and you'll just keep working this until you get the length that you need for your cat's neck, as well as being able to slip it over your cat's head. Okay, so Melba's neck circumference is about 24 centimeters, so I've made this about 27 centimeters, and that gives me plenty of room to sew the ends together and to slip it over her head, and for it to sit nicely on her neck. Okay, so you'll need to work that out and work out how long you need for your cat. And like I said at the beginning, if you've got a cat with a large head in proportion to the neck, you might need to add a little bit extra. If you've got a cat with a larger neck in proportion to the width of their head, you might not need to add as much, to the measurement of your cat's neck circumference. So as I said, Melba's neck circumference is 24 centimeters. I added, I think, about 2 to 3 centimeters on top of that measurement, and that gave me the size of the length of this collar part that I need. So you'll work those things out. Now when we come back, so keep going until you get to that length that you need, and then we'll just talk briefly about how you can transform this into a into a button up if you really want to, or into even a tie up. Otherwise we're going to stitch everything together and it's just going to slip over the head like this. So I'm going to work off camera to the length that I need, and you do the same, and I'll see you soon. Okay, so I've got the length there that I need, and so here we'll just talk quickly about how you can make this into a button up. So if on your last row you decided that you want to make this into a button up, what I would do is I would work those last 2 stitches. So we haven't been working the last 2 stitches in each row, but work them here in your last row. And then what I would do here is I would chain. So let's say 1, 2, 3 and 4. I would chain enough to accommodate my small button, and then I would turn and slip stitch across to the last stitch there. And that would just give me a little buttonhole, and I could sew a button onto the opposite end. Okay? And then of course you would sew your poppy and your leaf into the center here. Okay, and yeah, that's one way you could do it if your cat really hates things going over top of their head. The other way is you could so I'll just unwork those 2 that I worked that I didn't need to. So the other way is you could just tie off here, which I'm going to tie off here anyway, so let's tie off here. And what you could do is you could just leave those 2 tails, so your beginning and your last tail, your end tail, and you could just use those to tie up when you put it on your cat. Okay, so that's the other option that you could do. Okay, but I'm going to not do either of those things, and I'm going to sew all my pieces together and then eventually sew them onto my collar. Okay, so you've got your 3 parts there. So what we're going to do is we're going to, it doesn't matter what order yeah, I guess it doesn't really matter what order you do this, but what I would do is I would first sew my leaf to my poppy. Okay, now what I did on my last one, and what I'm going to do here too, is I actually just tied a knot between my black and my green, just to secure it at the back there. It's slightly cheating way of doing it, but I think it seems pretty efficient way of doing it. Now what you can do here is you can use, probably what's a good idea is to use your black, or at least one of your black tails, just so nothing shows through on the front. And I would just further attach that leaf. So once you've, if you want to, and you've tied your ends, what I just do is I further just attach my leaf with a couple of stitches through the black there. But it's very secure anyway with just tying the knots. And then what I would do is with the two, this is what I did last time for my other one, and it's very secure and neat. So I'm just going to tie again with my black, and I'm just going to snip off the back there. And then weave in these green tails, and for me I've got two, you've probably only got one. Although actually in this case, because my green is the same as, because I had black last time, so my last collar was black, so I actually used my black tails to sew my collar to my flower. But because I haven't got black here, what I think I'll do is I'm going to use my leaf tails, rather than weaving them into my leaf. I'm actually going to use them to attach my collar and flower. So what I do is I just tie a knot between, so if you're not doing the, either the button up or the tie version, just make sure that you're not twisted. Am I twisted? There, yeah, I'm twisted. Just make sure you're not twisted. That will naturally twist your little collar. And then just tie a double knot between your ends. Just try and keep everything from not twisting. Tie a double knot there, and then I would weave in these tail ends into, and this ending part, there's no right or wrong way to do it. Let's just remove that needle from there. There's no right or wrong way to do it. All you want to do is attach in the neatest possible way your flower to your collar. So once again, just make sure it's not twisted. Which way? That way. And I'm just going to sew between these ends here and then weave in those ends. So just secure that across just a couple of times. So just sewing those two ends together. And I'll do the same with the other end, and then I'll weave these ends into my collar. So there's the ends of my collar stuck together, and I might just do a little bit more sewing just to neaten up that. But this is going to be, I'm actually going to place my, if you're not doing a button up or a tie up version, you can just place your leaf and your flower on top of that join. So it doesn't have to be perfect. But I'm going to neaten it up just a little bit further and weave in these tail ends into the back, or into the collar here. And so I'll do that off camera, and I'll be back in a moment. Okay, so those ends are woven in, and I can just snip those excess ends off. And then I'm going, because my leaf tails are the same color as my collar, I'm going to use those to sew. So I'm going to put it over top of that join, and you know, you'll work out how you want it to sit, where you want your leaf to sit, and then you'll just simply sew it either in the center of your collar if you're doing the button up version, or just over the join here. And you'll probably want to, so you obviously don't want to go into the black so it shows at the front, unless you've got black, of course. It was easier last time because I had black to sew, but you know, it doesn't matter. I can just sew it and attach it onto the leaf there, into the back of the leaf. So you just want to, each time you sew, you just want to, I'll finish this off camera, but each time you sew, you just want to make sure that it's sitting how you want it to be sitting. I think that's going to be fine. And yeah, just attach the two together. I'm going to need my little piece of rubber to get that through, I think. Oh no, maybe I've got it through. There we go. I think that's good. And then, you know, you'll just secure it a few times. Make sure it's nice and secure on there. So I'll finish doing that off camera, and we'll be back to finish off together. So once you've got that nice and secure, you'll of course weave in your tail ends either into your leaf or into the back of the collar, whatever, you know, wherever it's the neatest. Oh, let's go into the leaf. So you'll just weave that tail end in so it's nice and secure. So I'm just going to go up into my leaf. I think that's the easiest place to put it. And I've got my trusty little piece of rubber glove here to help me pull my needle through. There we go. Let's just work that up a little bit further. So yeah, so after you've done all this weaving in, snipped off your excess, you're done. So a super cute way to commemorate the fallen, and for us here in France it's coming up to Armistice Day, so I thought that was a great way to commemorate. So I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. As always, I would love to see photos of your cat wearing his or her poppy, or you might have turned it into a different flower collar. So I'd love to see however you've created with this, however it looks, and meet your cat. It's always a great pleasure to me. So please send along your photos if you get some time to catventurous.community@gmail.com, or you can tag us on social media at catventurous.crochet. So thanks very much for being here, and we hope to see you soon. Thanks. Bye. Bye. You ready to go? You ready? What do you say? Good girl.